So good day, everyone. Welcome to this SDM webinar for Air Operator Certificate Holder. We will be presenting you here at least the guidance to comply with the EASA occurrence reporting requirements. I am Thierry Perron. I will be the co-host of this webinar, and my colleague Nicolas Balzano will also be the co-host for this webinar. So let's get started. Today's agenda. So we will present you quickly the aim of the webinar, the regulatory basis for reporting, what to report, why to report, what is reportable and to whom. Nicolas will be presenting you the second part about good reporting practices and guidelines for AOCs. When this webinar will be published, you will have an opportunity to send your question to us until the 28th of February 2026. Please use that email address, report@easa.europa.eu, to send us all the questions about this webinar. So we hope that this webinar will help you as an AOC holder to better comply with the applicable mandatory reporting requirements, to fine-tune your policies and procedure, to improve the screening of internally reported events, and also to assess and address the contributors to safety deficiency detected in the AOC organization as a system. So the very, very foundation of the occurrence reporting is also the three forms of risk management. So we know that between the plan operation, whatever the system is or the organization is, between the plan operation and the actual performance of the system, there is what we call a practical drift. A practical drift that leads to an unintended event, whatever the event is. So it can be the most serious form would be, of course, an accident, but it could be a serious incident, an incident, or just an event that shows that between what you plan to do and what you actually have done is slightly different. So one of the forms of risk management is the reactive one. The reactive risk manner is to prevent reoccurrence or mitigate severity of safety events. So typically we learn that after an accident, typically where we do look at the consequence and the contributing factor and the causal factor of an accident. Then there is a proactive way to manage the risk, in a way that we identify a hazard mechanism and threats beforehand and establish control measures to prevent initial occurrence from happening. And the third form of risk management is the predictive one. The predictive manner is making an attempt to anticipate future exposure based on performance, data, and knowledge. So you can see, for example, the blue arrow could be the compliance-based safety, where the amber arrow, the actual performance, is the performance-based safety. From an historical perspective, literally the reactive manner was the one that we used until the late 1940s in aviation, where we applied the principle of fly, fix, fly. The proactive manner went alive, let's say, during the mid-50s, when we realized that we needed to have better certification standards for jet aeroplane. So, but not only in aviation, because the system safety was introduced in the late 50s and allowed it two big performance for humanity. I would say two big achievement, sending man on the moon with the program Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo. And in aviation, the system safety allowed it one of the best aeroplane, I would say, the Concorde. The Concorde was one of the first aeroplane to use the system safety. The third one, the predictive manner, is in fact what was started in the late 80s in the United States and early 90s in Europe, but it's now commonly applied through your SMS and your safety risk management. Let's have a look now on the framework, regulatory framework. It's a condensed version because on top of that one, you should normally imagine the ICAO SARPs, Standard and Recommended Practices, that you know also on the terminology ICAO annexes, Annex 6, Annex 8, Annex 13, Annex 19. So when it comes about the EU framework, the first one is literally what matters to you as an AOC holder is what appears in green on the screen. So you have the 2018-1139, the basic regulation. The basic regulation calls an implementing regulation, and for you as an air operator is a 965/2012. You also have a very important document possibility to implement also the AMC 20-8 bracket, because currently the latest version is the 20-8A. Another piece of regulation important for occurrence reporting is the 376/2014. This one is linked to the implementing rules 2015-1018 that gives you the list of reportable occurrences. And as an operator, what matters to you is the Annex 1 to these implementing rules, Annex 1 on occurrences related to the operation of the aircraft. As a matter of example, you will see that if we look at the ICAO Annex, it's literally the same. The Annex 8, what does the Annex 8 say? As an operator, you have to report the fault malfunction defect to the type design organization. And in turn, the analysis of the fault malfunction defects, accident, and other significant maintenance and operational information. So the analysis will be made by the type design organization under the oversight of the state of design and sometimes also the state of registry. Let's have an example now on the flow of reports and data reflow in the European Union. We have an important piece of the centric reporting system in Europe. It is the ECR, the European Central Repository. We will be introducing EASA as a competent authority number 1. An EU member state as competent authority number 2. As a matter of example, for today's, we'll have as an actor an EU Part 145 maintenance organization. We will also have a design approval order, EASA 21J. Here it will be the EASA AOC, small asterisk, means under oversight of EASA for today, and also an EASA camel. So should a reportable occurrence happen, the AOC will have first to report when assessed as a reportable occurrence. It will report, because it's an EASA AOC, not a site, will report to its competent authority. Here, it's EASA. It will also have to liaise and report to EASA camel. Another line, you will also have, if it's a technical one, if it's a technical issue, you will have to report to the design approval order. The CAMO has also obligation to report to the design approval order. The CAMO will also, especially if it's a technical issue, will also have a report sent to the Part 145. Here, maybe I should highlight that the design approval order may be the type certificate order of the aeroplane, or but also could be the engine type certificate order. Not only the aircraft, could be the engine, could be an STC order. That's why we use the terminology design approval order. The 145, because it's a European Union Part 145, will have to report to its own competent authority, in this case, the EU member state. If it's a technical issue, obviously you report also to the design approval order. There is, in the EASA regulation, obligation for the design approval order to analyze the defect And if it happens to be an unsafe condition, it will be reported, or actual or potential, it will be also reported to EASA. We have an obligation to report, all authorities, EASA as well, an obligation to send back every 30 days to the ECR all occurrences that we receive. The ECR is the central repository. Similarly, the member state has to do the same for every occurrence he receives. And on top of that, there is another link, the link between the states, either as EASA or several member states. If there are safety significant information that we consider must be exchanged, we do exchange the information. So this graph shows the importance of the teamwork that happens between all actors on the slide. We took as an example a Part 145, but we could have taken an ATM ANS entity or an aerodrome. It would have been the same with different reporting lines, but the principles are the same. Now let's enter into the system of the occurrences. You have to understand, this is a very important slide, you have to understand that in fact there are only two kinds of occurrences that must be reported to EASA. The first one is what we call the operator-centric SMS-determined reportable occurrences that must be reported to the competent authority and that are related to the safety of the organization operation. You have the regulatory reference there. Then you have a second kind of occurrences. These are the regulatory list-determined occurrences that must be reported by an AOC and that are related to the safety of the product or the safety of aircraft operation. Typically, you will find them in the AMC 20-8 and, especially as mentioned before, in the Implementing Rule 2015-1018. And we will now enter into the detail of the first one, the operator-centric type of occurrences, and we will be, for other slides, dealing with and addressing the second part, the list-determined reportable occurrences. So let's start by the first one, the SMS-determined reportable occurrences. So, obviously, the SMS-determined occurrences are related to the safety of the organization. So, some risk classification permitted can be reported as closed on issue conditionally to combine the approved procedure and risk classification. Low risk up to, and here I say marginally outside, the acceptable level of safety performance. Here it's based and in close coordination with the AOC, with your AOC team leader, okay, to determine what can be closed on issue and what has to be reported as open, depending on the risk classification. And I will not enter into, we will not enter today in the safety performance indicator nor the safety performance targets you have to respect. This is to be discussed and agreed with your AOC team leader. So that's what I say. Some could be, and I say could be read also as most, depending on the organization and the maturity level of the organization. This is why you need close coordination with your AOC team leader. When it's closed on issue, it implies one and only one report, because there is no need for follow-up support, because there is no corrective action deemed necessary at AOC level. Some obviously shall be reported to as open when the level of the risk classification triggers a need for investigation. Obviously, you are outside the your acceptable level of safety performance, and you are outside of your safety performance targets. So if the report is open, it implies the existence of a safety deficiency, either potential or actual. It's up to you will decide that based on your investigation, your deeper analysis. Open also implies that there is a likely need for mitigations or corrective action at AOC level. Also, when it's open, If an open report implies one or more follow-ups report until submittal of the final report that shall be reported to EASA as closed. So we expect to see in your final report the timeline, because I will tell you that, and I will also show you that in a different slide. The final report normally, as a guidance, should be provided to your team leader, to EASA, within 90 days from your date of reporting. So your final report shall contain your final risk assessment. You will also document the mitigation and the corrective action for the review of the EASA team leader, comments and acceptance. An important point here, when you report to EASA, make sure that you also indicate all necessary parties of your report. The parties informed, design approval order, CAMO, different organization, so that we know exactly who is aware and who received the information. Then we enter in the second block of reportable occurrences, the one that are list determined. List meaning through the AMC 20, but also and mainly the 2015 and 18. And those occurrences can be related to the safety of the product or the safety of aircraft operation. Can be both. So these occurrences can be reported as closed on issue because in the case where the AOC is not responsible, because the AOC in that case will be not responsible for the continued airworthiness of the product type design. There might also be cases where it can be reported as closed on issue when the reporting AOC is not the originator of the operation-related errors. Typically, as an example, an unsafe ATS clearance. You report it as closed, you are not the originator, but anyway, you have to report it. It's in the 2015 and 18. When it's closed on issue, it implies one and only one report, same as before, with no need for follow-up reports, because we do not expect, at your level, a corrective or mitigating action. Be careful, do not confuse corrective action with a remedial maintenance action, which is a restoration of continued airworthiness. It's two different things. Here we're talking, the corrective action is what you're going to do to tackle the safety deficiency that you have identified. It's different. Similarly, please indicate to us all parties informed at time of reporting. So, obviously, the AOC must have an internal safety reporting scheme, and that scheme also should extend way beyond the scope of occurrences required to be reported to the competent authority. Make sure you collect and evaluate that every occurrence that are required to be reported under the recurrence reporting or RoGen 160. As seen before, you will find the list of reportable occurrences in these two references. On that side, what is important is that when you analyze your occurrences, you are able to identify the cause or causes and contributing factors. Make sure that you have the proper procedure in your safety risk management. And you might also want to have a look at the latest guidance, user guide for CAMO AOCs. This one is dated November 2024. I know that another one is coming soon. I cannot tell you when it will be published, but you should be expecting, we could be expecting an update of this user guide within the next week. So let's try to have another view of what has been told before. What I told you before, it's through a flow chart in a condensed version. So at some point in time, on the top left-hand corner, where it says T0, your staff, or several staff members, will report to you the same safety event. For an example, you might have a report issued by the captain, another report by the purser, another report by another cabin crew. So, and those individuals have up to 72 hours to report to you as an organization. So T0 and up to T0 plus 72 hours equal on what we consider here as T1. At that moment, the AOC has to collect, merge, and screen the data you received, and you will also rescore the occurrence event. You will merge the reports and not send 3 or 4 different reports because you received 4 or 5 different reports for the same operational event. So it's important to merge the report you receive first. Then you ask yourself in the first diamond on the top right hand, you ask yourself whether this event is reportable either through the list reportable occurrence or the SMS. Is it SMS or list reportable? If no, obviously you integrate the report into your database, your own organization database, and you use that for continuous improvement. If, however, it's reportable, then we go to the second diamond, and then you literally have to ask yourself the question: is there existence of a safety deficiency at the level of our AOC? And are we still within the acceptable level of safety performance? And then based on that, you have several cases. If it happens that the cause or causes are intrinsic, so we move on the right side on the amber color. So here in that case, you have identified a high-risk safety deficiency. So we expect you to first process this one as a matter of priority, and then you have to send ASAP the report as open to EASA. The report will be containing all common and relevant specific mandatory data fields, the initial risk classification, a narrative expliciting the safety deficiency, the preventive, mitigating, and/or corrective action found necessary, obviously based on the element known at this stage, because it's still very early. Okay? If the cause is still intrinsic, but let's say with a medium risk, so we are in the yellow part here. The first, the amber one, was as a priority. The second one is obviously must be processed expeditiously, but it's not the priority number one. But however, the risk is medium, and you still have to open it, because that's what your risk classification and your methodology has decided. So it's open, you sent it to EASA with all the same element, common and relevant specific mandatory data field, the risk classification, the narrative, the actions that you found necessary at that time. I know it's very early because it's within the 2 times 72 hours, because you have also 72 hours to do that. It can be difficult, but it's feasible. And you send the element to EASA. The third part, the third branch here is the green one, where you might have, where the cause might be extrinsic. Okay, coming, for example, as the example I used last time, the ATS, unsafe ATS clearance, not yours, but you still have to report it. Or you determine that there is no real safety deficiency, or it's a low risk safety deficiency as agreed and based upon your approved procedure. In that case, you send the report as closed on issue to EASA with the number of elements listed here, the common and relevant specific mandatory data field, the risk classification, and the narrative, and the conclusion documented why it can be submitted as closed on issue. All of that has to be done up to T1 plus 72 hours. So between your real events, T0, there is 2 times 72 hours to provide EASA with the information. For the yellow part and the amber one, then start the process. You start a process, you investigate, and you will have to report within 30 days. Generally, that's what is commonly agreed. You have 30 days to provide the competent authority with follow-up reports with the following details: preliminary safety analysis, revised risk classification if needed, and then analysis element with preventative, mitigating, corrective action as found necessary, and their respective timelines. It goes up to T1 plus 90 days because we expect at T1 plus 90 days to receive your final assessment and safety analysis. And only at the time it will go to your organization database. There is one thing I missed in what I said to you before. There can be there can be high risk safety occurrence that deserve to be reported almost immediately to EASA. There are cases, it's listed in the AOC, they are in the regulation. So literally in that case, if it's a serious case, very serious, I think uncontained engine failure, for example, would be typical, you literally have to report immediately. So it means that in that case, you pick up the phone and you contact directly your team leader to inform him or her of the event. And afterwards, you can start processing. You restart the process with the T0 up to 72 hours to provide additional data, but you report it immediately. What is reportable? So, as said, your internal reporting extends beyond the scope of occurrences required to be reported to the competent authority. And only a fraction is to be reported to the competent authority. So, you have the operator-centric SMS determined and the regulatory list determined reportable occurrences. Pay attention, that's why I say grab the subtleties of the 2015, because, for example, I just put two here, for example, when we talk about crew fatigue, here the regulation says crew fatigue impacting or potentially impacting the ability to perform safely the flight duties. It's not all reports about fatigue, but the one that you have assessed that having an issue and impacting negatively the ability to perform safely. The same is true for intoxicating, violent, unruly passenger. Here we're talking and we expect to be reported with the cases where you have difficulty in controlling, because you have processes, you are crew members, staff members that are trained to respond to that, but there might be cases where, despite all the processes in place, you might have difficulty in controlling either intoxicated, violent, or unruly passenger. And this is what we want to see, and this is what also we want to see how you will be adapting and updating your process to face the new difficulty that you encountered. Okay, remember that when it's reported as cause an issue, indicate the reason why. For example, it could be because it's monitored through the safety issue or the safety performance indicator reference XYZ, and still within your level of safety performance. Okay, accepted safety performance target. Just mention, but please quote it, explain the reason why you can close its own issue. And when it's reported as open, please indicate the reason why. Whether you have mitigation in place at time of preliminary analysis until submittal of your closure report. The final analysis documented the correction you have identified and decided to implement, and of course the timeline you will be presenting, you expect to introduce into your organization, and for review, of course, of the AOC team leader. There are a few more AMCs that are mandating or requires also reporting. They are listed here. The AMC 20-24 about ADSB NRA, the AMC 20-9 about departure clearance via data link over ACOS, as well as the AMC 20-10 about digital ATIS. Then I will let the presentation, I will let the hand to my colleagues, Nicolas, to start on his part on the good reporting practices and guidelines for AOC.
Thank you, Thierry. I will take over the sharing of the presentation. Just a second. Yeah. Good day, everyone. Yeah, so I will talk to you about good practice and the guidelines for air operator certificate holder. Yeah, just reminding that you can submit a question to the report at easa.europa.eu, as Thierry mentioned, and reminding again about the deadline until the end of February. And then, as Thierry was saying, we will take around a couple of weeks to answer to your question. Yeah. So let's start. This is also the main aim of my part is to improve the data quality of the report we received, And so I will, but I want to tackle this from a different angle this time, and I want to give you some information about the importance of the EASA aviation taxonomy and its key role for data management. So here you can see how it's structured the presentation. So I plan to talk about this foundation of aviation intelligence. So what is really a taxonomy? Why the taxonomy is important? What we want to achieve by using a taxonomy. Then we'll talk about this medium, our taxonomy maturity, because it is important to have something that is effective and good. We need to keep it up to date. And I also want to talk about quality control. I know that all of us have its own idea of quality control, but it's good to write down the definition for future reference. And then this is where it's a bit different from usual. I want to do a deep dive in the occurrence category and the event type classification. So you will get kind of training, so where we will see all the occurrence category that are available. These are made from the CSCTT taxonomy team. And then we'll have a quick overview because they are quite massive in content. We'll also have a look about the event type. And for the practical aspect, I will conclude sharing what we identify as the top quality issue that you address. So this will improve the data that we receive at the agency. Thank you. Let's start. The first thing is foundation of aviation, of the aviation intelligence. Is a concept that I want to articulate a bit, because when we here at the agency, we don't collect safety report. What we try to do is to build a collective memory on what happened to us, and but to make sure that this piece of intelligence work, we need to have a taxonomy, a structure to be able to use this experience that happened to us. So the structure that we need is given to us by a taxonomy. The taxonomy, as you can see here, you have these 5 points. It's a language, so it's you can see it as a universal alphabet that anyone that read it can understand what happened. So it doesn't matter in which language do you write it, everyone can understand. Even a safety analyst in another part of the world, not being there in the occurrence, is able to understand what happened. So we have, for our taxonomy, we have a structure hierarchy. This you can see by the dependency on parent-child. And this is it let us to store data into specific logic, so that we can find exactly information that we need, and we know where to search for them. The other bit is categorize the data, because when we do categorize, it opens us the part of data quality. So it starts that we know what we have in our database. We know how we classify based on specific codification that we have created. But this helps us for the query, to have a specific query that does the search for us. We don't have to read all the occurrence report that we have in our database. The taxonomy does the filtering for us. So looking for that exactly code will save us time into retrieve the exact thing we need. And we ending with the taxonomy is an analytical tool. So we can extract the knowledge that we put in from our past experience. And but the power of the taxonomy is solid only if we correctly use and we keep the taxonomy up to date. But this we'll talk a bit later about that. So let's see now why a taxonomy is so important. We have this data sharing concept. It allows data sharing because so if you are using the EASA aviation taxonomy, you can immediately share your data with other organizations, with the agency. But here I'm not pushing you to use the EASA aviation taxonomy, but is to use a taxonomy. Of course, if you are using a taxonomy that is different from the one embedded in EASA, then you will have to map your values with values that are available in the EASA taxonomy. I know that this work is a bit tedious because sometimes you don't have a one-to-one match, and then you will have to spend some time to enable this mapping between the two taxonomy before sharing the data. But but the recommendation, of course, is to use the EASA aviation taxonomy. Then that it just enable immediate sharing, and you don't have to implement the taxonomy in its entirety. You can implement only the values that are important for you or that you plan to use. For example, you will have. I will give you let's say an example for the occurrence category. There, I have included most of the categories, but I have excluded something that you will never report anything about that. So, for example, something related to glider, it doesn't really matter to you. So this sort of thing you can keep it out from your internal taxonomy. But let's have a look at the other 2 points: trend analysis, identification of risk. These go together because you can spot patterns that usually are invisible, and this gives you the so you can, for example, look if you have usually have bird strike at any specific location, or for example you have GPS spoofing in some particular location, and you want to address that. That it goes to when you identify trend and risk, then you can allocate your resources accordingly. So you know what you want to correct, and you can better manage your resources. And at the end, what we want to achieve is that we want to take action and decision based on our past experience and what happened to us. And if somebody question why we did something, we can respond to them that our action and decision were supported by the data and our past experience. So next bit is equally important because by using the taxonomy, we want to understand what we want to achieve. So we want to, let's say, we want to build our own encyclopedia, and we have a kind of this categorized sort of source of knowledge. So we want to record what happened to us. Then we analyze. We want to have the information why it happened and how we managed the situation after this happened. Because what we mostly want to do is want to protect people and our asset from any bad things or anything that hurted us in the past. And the aim is to prevent reoccurrence of something bad, because it had an impact on our asset, as I said before. But we want to also measure our safety performance. We want to understand how similar organizations are doing with similar problem. And if we are implementing the same taxonomy that is used from the NA or from any international organization, we will be on the same mindset. We will understand their output easily, and we will understand what the authority is asking us. And what we really want to do is we want to close the safety loop. So just repeating, something happened to us, we analyze it, we understand what happened to us, we want to identify the mistakes, we do want to make a risk assessment, and because we want to prevent these to happen in the future, implement the corrective action, and the most important bit, we want to communicate what happened with the person there in the front line, so they know that what to do next time. And by doing all of this, we are compliant with regulation. So it's just natural happening that. So we're having a taxonomy. It's exactly the one that is using the authority, and we are sending the report. The mandatory report that they are listed in the regulation, as Thierry said. But we want to keep. Sorry for the slide there. We want to keep our medium, the taxonomy. We want to keep it up to date. Why we want to do that? Because there is an evolution of technology. We have a lot of data for past experience, and we know how these things work. But we are also interested on data for new technology, because we want to prevent something that happened with the old technology. So we want that new technology don't jeopardize the safety aspect. And so you can, we have new electrical engine, drones. We want to make sure that our taxonomy is up to date to capture this aspect. We want to refine definition and reduce misunderstanding. What this means that we want that if the taxonomy is used by different people, the definition are clear. So everybody is using the taxonomy at the same way. But we want also to correct mistake. So we have to think of the taxonomy as our domestic animal. We have to take care of it. So we need to remove duplicates. We can delete unused volume. Perhaps at some point in time, we thought that something was necessary, but then we ended up without using it. And we also want to fix the errors, of course. Another aspect is the granularity of the taxonomy. Sometimes the granularity is too fine, and we don't get that kind of information, and we ended up to not use that values that we have created. Or on the contrary, in some other times we are too general, and we don't get that detailed filtering that we need. So we can do some update there to trim out the granularity on exactly what we need. And finally is a global alignment. We are investing so much work in our taxonomy to keep it up to date, to answer our need. But we also need to be in alignment, and we need to at least, so for this we have this requirement on reporting your occurrence with at least the pre-last taxonomy updates. And this is available on the ECARES 2 aviation taxonomy, aviation portal. There on the taxonomy page, you can see the latest release of the taxonomy. And we are getting into our regular updates, so that these are listed. We are planning taxonomy update monthly, but of course you will have to implement the updates only that are related to the attribute that you are using. So let's continue with I talked before about defining this concept of defining quality control, but I know that every one of you already have, as I said before, as its own concept of it. But sometimes I find it powerful to write something down, even if I already know. And to see what I wrote down, this gives me that power on keeping that knowledge vivid in my mind. So it's exactly what I want to do here. quality control, it's important for the trust we have in our data, in our database. That is really important because you as analyst or any analyst wish just to perform a query, hit enter, and extract the data, exactly the data it's need. But how many of you, after they perform this query, they just start to doubt on the result that you receive? And the first thing you do ends on the data and checking what you have there and try to correct. But this is work that is supposed to already be there. So we have this tool, quality control, to make sure that everything we do is in compliance with rule and definition of our taxonomy. So it's a kind of verification activity after every time we encoded a report, that this is done in compliance with rule and definition. We also want to identify gaps. So sometimes we can see too many holes. So it's like the usage of too many other unknown, not applicable. This may say something that probably maybe the taxonomy is missing something there, and we need to. This goes back to what I was saying before, healing our pet. So there is something probably that we need to create in the taxonomy, or the people are not following, the people that are using the taxonomy are not following the rule and the description. And this goes to the following bit, that so if they are not following the rules, maybe the rules are not, they need to be updated, or the description need to be updated. And the last bit that is also important is historical accuracy. Here what we want, and it still goes into the framework of quality control, we want that a concept that was developed 40 years ago means always the same even now. And if we do implement some changes, we should make sure that our data is updated to match this new concept. So now we go into this deep dive on occurrence category classification. So here I give you a bit of history on when the CAST ICAO Common Taxonomy Team was established in 1999. CAST is Commercial Aviation Safety Team. And so they started working in 1999. They worked not only on occurrence category, but on several other taxonomy. So also the aircraft make model, engine make model, flight phase. But here what we are talking is the occurrence category. The first release was occurred in 2002, but actually the first document that I was able to track down on the internet is dated 2004. The purpose of this occurrence category classification is to have a high-level code of what happened in the occurrence. And the other thing is that we want to know all the codes of this occurrence category, because when we are talking with colleague or with other organization and we are talking about the same issue, we want to have this global language. And regarding the occurrence category, multiple category can be given for occurrence. So, but at least one or multiple. So let's dive in. So I will be pretty there. So here there are many occurrence category. I have already done the filtering that is showing only the one that are related to you. And this slide contain a lot of information, but I have prepared this for your reference, for future reference. If you have any doubts, you can get to this content and then clarify your doubts. Of course, still the reference is the document published from the CICTT, but this is a simplified version that still include all the notes, but and it's for you. But here I will go pretty quick. So we have one of the first is, these are listed in alphabetical order. So we have abnormal runway contact. So any landing or takeoff involving abnormal runway or landing surface contact. Then we have abrupt maneuver. So is when the pilot intentionally steers the aircraft to avoid a collision with an object, person, terrain, or other aircraft. Of course, you can later on you can read and go through the includes and what it excludes, all the specific notes. Aerodrome is any occurrence that involves aerodrome design, service, or functionality issues. Next, we have mid-air collision or near mid-air collision. These are occurrences involving in-flight aircraft collision, near collision, loss of separation, or ACAS, TCAS alerts. ATM CNS occurrence category is occurrence involving air traffic management or communication, navigation, surveillance, service issues. So here, I just want to give I want to stress here, because sometimes from what we have got reported, there is a bit an overlap between ADM and NAV category. The NAV category we'll see in a bit, but here is usually this category is related for deficiency related to the ATM. If the deficiency is on the crew that didn't follow the clearance, that kind of events are coded under NAV. Next is burst track. This is pretty much straightforward. Is occurrence involving collision or near collision with birds. The next one is cabin. Any occurrence in the passenger cabin of a transport category aircraft. So it's only for transport category aircraft. So this is really match your operation. Next one is collision with obstacle during takeoff and landing. So collision with obstacle during takeoff and landing while the aircraft is airborne. So it's only for airborne phase of flight. Next, control flight into or toward terrain, CFIT. In-flight collision or near collision with terrain, water, or obstacle without indication of loss of control. Evacuation, an occurrence where an evacuation was either unnecessary, failed due to equipment malfunction, resulted in injuries, or contributed to the severity of the event. Fire, smoke, non-impact. Fire or smoke in or on the aircraft, in flight or on the ground, which is not the result of the impact. This is different from the following. F post, fire and smoke resulting from an impact. So this is not coming after any component failure, but is a result of an impact. Fuel-related occurrences is a loss of power in one or more engine caused by fuel exhaustion, starvation, contamination, mismanagement, or induction carburetor icing. Ground collision, collision while taxiing or to or from a runway in use. So this is only for taxiing phase. And ground handling ramp is the occurrence during or as a result of ground handling operation. So here there's a bit, maybe I want to stress this concept. Here is because the ground landing can also happen during taxi, but here is where the operation is carried by the ground handling organization, while for the previous one, ground collision is when the aircraft is using its own power. So jumping on the next one, ice. So this one you can just, it's straightforward, accumulation of snow, ice, freezing rain, or frost on aircraft surface that adversely affect aircraft control and performance. Loss of control on ground. So loss of control while the aircraft is on ground, straightforward, non-airborne phases. Loss of control in flight is while airborne, representing an extreme manifestation of a deviation from the intended flight path. Medical occurrence involving illness of person on board an aircraft. This one, there is a note that for a medical emergency that involved the passenger, before were coded as cabin, but after October 2013, they started to be coded as medical. This is what I was saying on the historical accuracy, that if something changed, then you reflect it within your database. Navigation error, as we talked, I introduced a bit before, occurrence involving the incorrect navigation of the aircraft on the ground or in the air. These are deviation from the crew. Any occurrence not captured from any other category, and don't use this category in combination of any other occurrence category. So give only this category when there are not any other that match. Runway excursion, straightforward, veer off of the runway, sideways or overrun. Runway incursion, the presence of an aircraft, vehicle, or person on a protected landing or takeoff surface. Security-related, criminal or security act which result in accident or incident. So here it goes, if you have report any unruly passenger report, these are classified under the security occurrence category. System component failure, not power plant. So malfunction of aircraft system and component other than power plant. And the next one is related to component related to power plant. Next one is turbulence, in-flight turbulence encounter, and include clean air turbulence, wake vortex, etc. Undershoot and overshoot is a touchdown off the runway, helipad, helideck surface. Unknown, if you don't have enough information to classify the occurrence report, you can use this category, and also this one don't need to be used in combination with other category. Wildlife, collision with or risk of collision or evasive action taken by an aircraft to avoid wildlife on the movement area of an aerodrome or helipad, helideck in use. Flight in the wind shear and thunderstorm is pretty straightforward. And then that's it. So here it was just to scroll through the category, so that just you listen what is there, so you know, and then you have this piece of information for your reference that you can go back, and because the first thing is to know all the values, and then you can go in detail with the definition and rules that are specified there. So let's move to the event type taxonomy. So these were developed even before in 1976. At the beginning, they had I checked, there were only 88 values, and you can see that in 50 years, a massive level of detail has been added. So nowadays we have over 3,000 values. And what the aim for the event type, here is where we go. So in the occurrence category, we stay at high level. In the event type taxonomy is where we go deep into detail. If we want to look at our database for something specific that happened, is the thing that we use, event type. And the thing is, what's the purpose is to transform a narrative text that is subjective, that may have unnecessary information, is to translate this piece of text into a list of event type of which we are interested on. So it's making kind of build a house on, and inside it we are interested on things that are in the house. So is thinking inside the box, but of course, as we said before, we can always manage the taxonomy and making the box a bit bigger or a bit smaller. And what we do with event type, we standardize our storytelling. We code what why it happened, what it happened, and how it happened. Of course, for the initial report, we may not know why it happened. We just know the what part, and then with our analysis, with follow-up, we start to know why it happened, what were our mistake, how the events unfolds. And so we want to code this within the event into a standardized sequence. We want to put before why it happened, then what it happened, and how it happened. As you can see, there are over 3,000 values. These it says that the encoding of this specific taxonomy is knowledge dependent. So a senior analyst will have a different knowledge than a junior analyst, and the coding may be not standardized because this is just a reflection on having 3,000 values. The output will be maybe slightly different, but here is like, it's important because we are already in an era of artificial intelligence, and if we have good definition, we can use these new tools to make sure we apply all the 3,000 value correctly and according to the definition that we have built. What I want to do now is just a quick overview of the event type taxonomy, because as you see, 3,000 values is unrealistic to cover. But I want to show you the hierarchical structure of it. And here I'm showing only the first level. For event type, we have 4 levels. We have level 1 that are, you can see they are just 7 values, and then this thing, it gets more complex because you have children values. As I was saying before, there is this hierarchical structure. We have 84 level 2, 451 level 3, and then the bulk is a level 4 with 2,604 level 4 event. And it started, these here are shown alphabetically. You have any other events, it's only level 1, but the rest, consequential event, equipment, they do have children events, so level 2, level 3, and etc. But I will let you navigate so you can access the event type taxonomy on the Occurrence 2 Aviation portal. You go to the taxonomy browser, type event type, and then you can browse to the different level. What I want to give you now that is something more practical is to read an example, a practical example of an occurrence, and you can see how we have it encoded in our database according to the event type taxonomy and also the event phase that is given on the side. So let's read the text. Flight crew experienced cabin altitude warning at flight level 370. The flight crew donned the aircraft oxygen mask and initiated the emergency descent. During the descent, the flight crew suffered change in air pressure. Mayday was declared. Flight crew uneventfully landed on EPKT. Flight crew uninjured, aircraft with no damage. So here you can see that we put the first event, cabin decompression, and you can also see the structure. You have event, then you have the ATA chapter, 21 air conditioning and pressurization system, then you have the SABSA chapter, pressurization control system event, and then the exact thing, the cabin decompression. So these occurred at flight level 370, so during en route cruise. The second thing is other warning system operation. So they got a cabin altitude warning. We don't have the specific warning for cabin altitude, so we have coded the other warning system operation. Then the release use of oxygen mask by the flight crew. So you see this is nested in operational, aircraft flight operation, cabin safety, and then release of mask, release use of oxygen mask. Then is followed by the emergency descent and the mayday call made by the crew. And you can see that this is reflected in the event phase where it says emergency descent en route. So this is the thing that are coded with according to the event taxonomy. And basically that's it, what I wanted to show for this practical example. And I have my last slide is to talk about the top 5 quality issue that we have identified in your reporting. We have identified that sometimes, so you have, Thierry has mentioned to you that you have the time frame for reporting. So you have T1 plus 72 hours to report. So you are meeting the requirement for immediate reporting for the first report. But sometimes we identify for a follow-up report, the regulation give you a bit of room. You have up to 30 days. So we wish that you do not rush these and submitting a follow-up report just before this deadline if there are no new information to share. So don't rush update trap, don't follow in this rush update trap, but share with us only the information when you have added value to report to us. Then for technical failure, and identify the system that fails. Sometimes you say something that fails, but you do not provide the exact data chapter. In the taxonomy, the main in our taxonomy, the main ADA chapter is aligned with the ADA chapter taxonomy that is used by the design approval holder. So this information is available to you. Please provide it in the text. The other bit is narrative precision and cluttering. Sometimes we get a massive information of a massive, let's say, unimportant information that it doesn't go directly on what it happened, but it shows the circumstances that. So we just ask you to keep the text on the important bits. To things that don't bring added value, keep it out from the narrative. And as Thierry was saying before, identify any other party informed. This you can provide into the text, or we have a dedicated field, party informed in the taxonomy, and you can choose the right values there. And finally, we have noticed sometimes you mention an attachment, but the attachment is not there, and the information contained in the attachment should be always provided into the dedicated field, but sometimes they are not there. The attachment is not there, and we have to get back to you because the information is, we are missing the information, and so we cannot really process the follow-up or the closure report. And I basically that's it on this top 5 quality issue that we have identified. And I want to leave you with this sentence related to data quality that is still actual. And I want to say that good data quality shorten our processing time, but also yours. Clarify what happened and turn information into actionable intelligence, and ensure that resources are focused where they are truly needed. And thank you for your attention for my part. And coming back to the after webinar handling. So this webinar will be posted on the EASA internet. And you will, and this probably will happen beginning of February. Will be in the will be available online, will be also available on YouTube, and you will have until the 28th of February, end of February, to submit your question. The email address we have shown before, report@easa.europa.eu, for any question you have related to this webinar, and we will then answer all the questions and post our reply on the EASA internet. Sorry, again. Yeah. Thank you for your attention. And then, of course, there is some resources slide on the supporting material that we have used for preparing our slide. Do you want to add anything else?
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you all for your attention and attendance. And we're expecting some question. And obviously, if we are unable, either Nicola or myself, be able to answer the question, we will be also asking our colleagues from the AOC to help us answer your question, your specific question for your AOC and organization.
Thank you very much for...
Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.